Welcome to Storytime with Cozy Malka, where we gather to share tales about responsibility, courage, and honesty. As we come together, let's put on our listening ears as we're transported into amazing stories. For this episode, we'll be learning about bravery versus injustice as we continue our tale about that clever rogue, Robin Hood, and his merry men. So without further ado, let's find a cozy spot, grab a friend, and let's enjoy a great story. Chapter 9: How Robin Won the Silver Arrow. Now that Robin had got his band together, little passed in the North Midlands or in Yorkshire itself of which he did not know, for the country people, seeing that he was for their rights and against the oppression of the barons and the church dignitaries, gave him and his men any aid they asked. This was the time when John ruled England in his brother's absence, and Queen Berengaria, together with the Queen Mother Eleanor, laid all England under heavy tribute to get together the money to ransom King Richard, who lay a prisoner to Luitpold of Austria in the castle of Gratz. Even John himself, much as he feared his brother's return, helped to gather in tribute for the ransom, and for that purpose made a progress of the Midland counties. When he came to Nottingham, the sheriff Robert de Renault held a tournament in his honor, for Robert was John's man and profited by John's tyrannies. Much the miller's son, who had been to visit his father, brought back news of the tournament at the same time that he brought word to Robin of the boy Wathoff's new suit. "The lad is a fine young cock now," said Much, prancing round in his Lincoln green with a toy bow, and vowing that he will be Robin Hood's man when he is grown. "Right well has the merchant fitted him out." "I am glad the man was honest," Robin commented. "But what of this tournament in Nottingham, good Much?" "They will hold it in Pike's Field, under the wall of the town on the north side," Much announced. "Already my father tells me the lists are set for the knights and the bearers raised, and now they make a great platform on which John is to sit with the sheriff to watch the jousting of the knights and the contests between the men-at-arms. 2 days of jousting, they say, and a day for the sports of the common people." "So ever," said Robin, "2 to the Norman thieves, and 1 to the people they rob under John." "But there will be rare sport on the 3rd day," said Much, "for there is to be archery at a mark, after the sword play on foot, and the prize for the best archer is a silver bugle and a silver arrow feathered with gold." "A good prize," said Robin thoughtfully, "and I count that the sheriff's man Hubert will hope to win it." "He is afraid of one of the men who comes with Count John," said Much, "a leery fellow with a squint they call Henry." "Do they call the fellow Henry or the squint Much?" interrupted Little John, who was listening. "Nay, but a pest on thy jokes," said Much, amid laughter. "This Henry is a mighty archer, they say, and will put a shaft in the clout at half-mile, if there is no wind." "Given 2 pots of ale, he would call it a mile," said Friar Tuck, "and for a 3rd pot would make it from Nottingham to Sheffield." "I have a mind to hang that bugle over my shoulder, and to put the silver arrow in my quiver," said Robin Hood thoughtfully. "There is too much risk in it, good master," Little John warned him. "Many a man in Nottingham would be glad of the 40 gold marks the sheriff set as a price on your head." "And many a man there would guard me from the sheriff," said Robin. "Little John, we will go after that bugle and the arrow. Out of all the clothes and armor we have taken of late, there will be disguises for a couple of score of us, and I will shoot for the sheriff's prize." They planned it out, decided who should go to Nottingham to see Robin shoot for the sheriff's prize, and how they should disguise themselves. When the day came, there arrived at Pike's Field certain millers, dusty with the meal and flour of their trade, and cattle herders with smocks and hats pulled down over their eyes, and a great beggar who limped on a crutch, as Little John had decided that was his best disguise. And all these watched the long staff bouts and cheered the winners most lustily. Although it was the 3rd day of the tournament, there was a brilliant gathering of knights and their ladies up in the stand with Count John and the sheriff, and the field was thronged with sightseers from miles around, for seldom did such great people come to Nottingham. When the swordsmen had finished and the targets were set up for archery, the people flocked to the bearers on either side to see the shooting, as nearly 60 tall fellows stood forth to shoot. Among them was an old ragged man with dirty face and torn cap, who wanted to give in his name with the rest to the clerk who entered up the competitors. The clerk looked at him in doubt. "'Tis a good bow, but I doubt if such a scarecrow as you have the strength to draw it," said the clerk. "Still, they will beat you in the first round. What name do you go by?" "Men call me Hodden o' Barnesdale," the ancient quivered weakly. and wiped his eyes on his sleeve. And I tell you, Master Clerk, I be as good as they young sprigs with a bow, for all your saying. Bragging ne'er sped an arrow yet, Hoddin o' Barnesdale, said the clerk shortly, and if you have tramped here from Barnesdale in Yorkshire, you will have no strength left for shooting. Still, take your place, man. Now Prince John, seeing this ragged ancient among so many stout fellows, leaned forward in his seat and called down to the lists. Clerk, he said harshly, what does that ragged beggar among the archers? Why is he there? Sire, the clerk called back, he enters himself to shoot against them for the silver bugle and arrow. There was a ripple of laughter among the crowd, but the old man shook his fist at the clerk and turned to the royal stand. Your worship, he squeaked, I be Hoddin o' Barnesdale, and as good a man as these beef-fed louts any day. Turn him out, clerk, cried the sheriff. Not so, said John, but let the man shoot, and if he put not an arrow in the target, he shall be drubbed out of the lists. Have no fear, your worship, squeaked the old man. My arrows shall find the target. They be English arrows, as English as the one that found Red Williams's heart. Now, an allusion of this sort to the shooting of William Rufus was an insult to any Norman, and especially to the one who hoped to wear Red Williams's crown. John leaned forward again, his face dark with anger. Mark that man, clerk, he cried. If he be not in the last dozen contests, bring him before me to be whipped for a Saxon braggart. There were many Saxons lining the lists that day, and they murmured openly at the insult, especially the tall beggar with a crutch. But now the archers were lined up, 6 at a time, for the first trial, which would leave one man in every 6 to shoot off for the prize. When Hoddin o' Barnesdale's turn came, he was 3 inches nearer to the center of the target than any of the 6. Chance, mere chance, said the clerk angrily, for he had hoped to see old Hoddin beaten. There were now 12 men left, of whom the sheriff's man Hubert had so far shot the best arrow, while Henry, the man of John's following, was next. Best, for though old Hoddin had shot better than either, it was regarded as a chance shot. Now a single great target was set up, into which each man of the dozen must shoot an arrow in turn, till each had shot 3 arrows. But if any man missed the target altogether, he must retire from the contest. The distance was 120 yards. The first 2 archers missed altogether and walked off with mortification on their faces. Then came Hubert, who landed a shaft within 6 inches of the black spot in the center of the target, and 2 more who only scored on the outer edge. Then old Hoddin stepped into place with a grin, loosed off a shaft so carelessly that he seemed to take no aim at all, and turned away before the arrow struck the target. Child's play, this, he said. But from the watchers near the target a roar went up, for his arrow was in the black spot, which was barely half an inch across. Hubert stared hard at the old man. Does the devil ride your arrows, old fool? He asked viciously. Nay, said old Hoddin, the devil fights shy of English arrows, as do you, Normans. Hubert rushed at him to strike him, but a couple of his fellows held him back. Why spoil your aim, they asked. The old fool is not worth a blow. The shot was sheer luck, for he took no aim. Then another roar went up, for Henry, John's archers, had planted a shaft within an eighth of an inch of old Hoddin's. Hubert glared at the man angrily and waited to see what the rest would do. But no other archer came near the center of the target in this first round, and since 3 more missed altogether, there were but 7 left for the second stage of the contest. Old Hoddin, having made the best shot before, was set to shoot first when the first target was put up, and he loosed off his arrow with as little care as before. They should set up a mark to make it worth a man's while to try, he said as he turned away. Shooting at that great white thing is no more than throwing stones at a pond. And down to the other end of the range, the spectators yelled and threw up their hats. To Hoddin, they cried, for the old man had put his arrow in the black spot again. But when John's man Henry had shot, they went wild, for Henry split Hoddin's arrow with his shot. Man, said Hoddin to Henry, there are few archers like us too, and be he Norman or English. I love a man who can put in such a shaft as that. Henry regarded the old man curiously. I would take a lesson or 2 off you, Master Hoddin, he answered, for mine is my best shooting, while with you it is a matter of ease. Later, maybe, Hoddin said. Let us see what this braggart of the sheriff's choosing will do. But Hubert cursed when he saw that his shaft was a good 2 inches off the spot, though he had dwelt long on his aim. Still he cheered up when 2 more of the 7 missed the smaller target, and left only 5 for the final shot, with only Hoddin and Henry better than himself. Now the clerk, turning towards where John called out the names of the 5 left in, and John sighed to him. Bring them before us, clerk, he called. So the 5 were ranged before the stand, with Henry on the right and Hodden O'Barnsdale next to him. John nodded at his man. Go to it, Henry, he bade. And when I hand you the bugle, I will see that it is filled with silver pennies. Your worship, old Hodden squeaked, he hath yet to win the prize. When I have beaten him, will the bugle be filled with silver pennies for me? Ha, you beat Henry? John marked. Aye, if you can beat such an archer as he, I will surely fill the bugle with silver pennies. Thank you, your worship. Since a Norman thief stole my land, my old woman ha win a new gown, and the pennies'll buy her a rare one. Aye, said John, angered again, and you who dare call Norman thieves to our face shall have your right hand cut off when Henry has beaten you and taken the bugle. Away with him to their work clerk, and watch this old rascal closely, lest he run away after a shot. The 5 were ranged up before a still smaller target, and Henry, being judged the best shot of the 5, after his last feat, was first to shoot. He missed a black spot in the center by a bare half an inch, and stood back with a frown of vexation. Then old Hodden raised another cheer as he planted his arrow in the black, but not exactly in the center. Then came Hubert, the sheriff's man, whose arrow struck level with old Hodden's in the black, so that the 2 shots were exactly equal. The other 2 made worse shots than Henry and retired. Your worship, said the clerk to the sheriff, Hubert and Hodden O'Barnsdale must shoot it off, for they have tied for first place. If they are to shoot it off, said John, as he sat beside the sheriff, then my man Henry must shoot too, for it was but by chance that he missed the black this time. It was dead against all rules, as everyone knew, but the heir to the throne was not to be contradicted, so a 4th target was set up at 150 yards, and Hubert, who shot in the last round was reckoned the best, shot first, and missed the target altogether. A trick of the wind, the sheriff cried. Let him shoot again. Let him stand down, John growled, fearful lest his man should be beaten. 1 shot and no more. Do you shoot now, Henry? So though by the rules of the game it was old Hodden's turn, Henry stood forward, dwelt long on his aim, and shot. There was a buzz of applause, for his arrows landed in the black, though well to the left. Now, old fool, John cried, excited over his man's shooting, take your stand and loose your last arrow before you lose your hand. With no sign of fear, Hodden stepped to his place, and this time, it was noted, he took more careful aim. The great arrow hummed from the string and struck with a thud, and again the crowd roared applause, for Hodden's shot had split Henry's arrow and landed in the center of the black. Old Hodden nodded and grinned. Now how many silver pennies go to fill a bugle? He asked. John leapt up from his place and walked down to the target, inspecting it narrowly. Then he came back. It is a tie, he declared. They must shoot it off. For still he hoped to see his man win, and cheated thus in his decision to make another chance for Henry. Dread Lord, said Henry, what shall we shoot at? For unless the wind trick us, and the day is still with no wind, we shall never decide. Your worship, said old Hodden, the shooting at Walls o' White is but a game for babes. Let us set up a peeled window wand at 150 cloth yards, and the first split it takes a bugle. Why then, you old fool, said John, we shall sit here until Christmas, and longer, for no man ever hit such a target. Lord, said Henry, I have heard of such shooting, and once I have hit such target through but at 50 yards. If the old man is willing, then so am I. So be it, said John. 1 shot apiece, and he who shoots nearest to the wand shall take the bugle and the silver arrow. The last target was cleared away, a slip of willow peeled and stuck in the ground, and the distance carefully measured off. Do you shoot first? Hodden said to his opponent, for there are clouds coming over the sun, and I would give you the best light. Master, said Henry, you be a right courteous old man, and I thank you, but no man can hit the wand at that distance, and we must find another mark when we have failed at this. He made a good attempt, dwelling long on his aim, and twice lowering his bow at the merest breath of wind. At last he shot, and a great ooh of wonder went up from the watchers, for his arrow had grazed the wand. A fine shot, good Henry, said old Hodden, as he stooped and plucked a speck of grass. He threw it in the air to get the set of the faint breeze, twanged his bowstring, and set the arrow on it. Then he stepped to the mark, took careful aim, and let fly. A mighty shout went up when it was seen that he had split the wand fairly with the arrow. This is not a man, it is a demon in human form, said John. Demon or man, Lord, he hath won the prize, the sheriff reminded him. Old Hodden turned to Henry and held out his hand. Though the bugle is mine, do you take the pennies out of it, Master Henry? He said, for I would not wish to shoot against a better man. But Henry shook his head. I have pennies aplenty, old man, he answered, and the full prize is yours, fairly won. Do you take it all, and may we yet meet for another match. I trust so, said Hodden. I will now go and claim my prize. So he went up to where John very unwillingly held the silver bugle full of pennies in one hand and the beautiful gold and silver arrow in the other. John frowned at him fiercely. Old man, he said, I would I had had the right of yours looped off rather than you should take this prize. Take it and be gone. For such courtesy, your worship, no less than for the prize, my thanks, Hodden answered, and took the bugle and the arrow. With a quick movement, he swung the bugle, flinging its contents of silver pennies far and wide among the people who stood round to watch, and then backed away from where John the sheriff sat. Hold that man, John cried out. 'Tis some thief disguised, for such as he seems do not fling silver pennies away. But Hodden was already clear of the crowd about the stand, and, with an arrow ready on the string, he pointed straight at John's craven heart. Take back that order or die, Count John, he cried in ringing tones. Let him go, John yelled in sheer terror. Now Guy of Gisborne, who had watched the shooting and more especially had kept an eye on old Hodden, suddenly reached out and grasped the archer's tattered old hat. It came off, and with the dirty old grey wig and beard that had concealed his face. "'Tis Robin Hood! Seize him!" Guy shouted. "Outlawed! 40 marks for the man who takes him!" But he said no more, for just then the limping beggar raised his crutch and brought it down on Guy's head with such force that he dropped senseless, and Little John's voice roared out, To hood! To us, merry men, English all!" A score or more of stout fellows armed with great quarter staves came knocking their way through the crowd that gathered round, and Robin, seizing a staff, retreated with them after he had slung his bow so that as to have both hands free. Meanwhile, Little John's shout had served its purpose of setting the Saxon English people of Nottingham against John's Norman followers, and in 5 minutes or less there were a dozen separate fights going on, while John and the sheriff fled for safety, and Robin and his men retreated steadily beyond the barriers of the tournament grounds. Here they came to a body of men-at-arms set to keep order among the crowd, and now drawn up with swords ready to stop them, but Robin and Little John advanced with a rush, with quarter staves whizzing around them, and the first who tried conclusions with them found their swords either shattered or whirled out of their hands by the flying staves. And when Will Scarlet, Much, and the rest of the band joined issue with the men-at-arms, and the staves rattled on their pates in earnest, such as were not laid stunned took to their heels and bolted, while the good people of Nottingham roared with laughter to see John's hated followers put to flight in such fashion. Without the loss of a man, Robin drew off, and the surging crowds prevented any man whom the sheriff sent in pursuit from finding which way he had gone. The outlaws reached the shelter of the forest in safety and made their way to their retreat. "'Twas a joyous adventure, Robin," said Little John as they ate together, "but we will not go to Nottingham again this month." "No," said Robin, "unless they hold another shooting match, I would. I had another crack at that man Henry, for he shoots a good arrow." Thank you for joining us for Storytime with Cozy Malka. We'd love for you to share with our friends what you learned from tonight's tale. Join us next time for the continuing adventures of Robin Hood.